Chapter 5 is Inequalities in Geometry. We will begin, as we do sometimes, with some pre-chapter skills in practice. Some pre-chapter skills in practice is looking at pie graphs here, uh, bar graphs, and Venn diagrams. The first section or of actual lesson there, Unit 5.2, is, which we really call Unit 5.1, second on the list of Chapter 5 stuff here, is Venn diagrams, which we're going to take a little bit of a look at in the pre-chapter skills and practice. Inequalities in a triangle. We learned if two sides of a triangle are equal, then the angles opposite those equal sides are equal. So then we're going to say now if two sides of a triangle are unequal, where one's bigger than the other, then something must be true about the angles across from those unequal sides. So now we're dealing with inequalities, not equalities. And then we're going to study for two triangles. We learned that if two angles of one triangle were equal to two angles of the other, then the third angles were equal. If two angles of one triangle equal two angles of another triangle, then the third angles are equal. Now we're going to deal with some some inequalities in those triangles. We're going to talk about medians, altitudes, and perpendicular bisectors, what they are, and then we're going to learn some special rules about if you draw all the medians in one triangle, all of the altitudes in one triangle, or all of the perpendicular bisectors of the sides of one triangle. They're all going to intersect at a certain point that does certain things, and we call those concurrent lines. Okay? As usual, the odd answer solutions in the study guide at the end. And so we're going to move on to the pre-chapter 5 skills and practice. Now, it says monthly budget. What we have here is a pie graph. We know that a circle is 360 degrees. If we put the amount of gas expense over the total monthly budget, we would get a fraction. We could take that fraction and change it to a decimal and take that decimal and change it to a percentage and take the percentage times 360 and get the angle measure. Let me tell you what I just said. We just said that a percent can be found from a fraction, and that fraction is really a part over a whole. If you take a part over a whole, you get a fraction. If you do what that fraction says and divide the part by the whole, you get a decimal. And if you take that decimal and move it two places to the right, you get a percent. Now, a circle is 360 degrees. So if we knew the amount of gas expense, and we could put it over that total, we could get a percentage, and we could multiply that percentage times 360 degrees, and we already know actually the percentage of gas, 0.12. You could multiply that times 360 and get the angle measure instead of the percentage. Let's just do that right quick. Nowhere on here does it ask us to do that, but let's try it out. 0.12 times 360 degrees is 43.2 degrees. So it gave us in this diagram the percentages, but it could have given us the angle measure, 42.3 degrees, I believe it was in here, okay? Now, in the Algebra 1 textbook on page 70A is where pie graphs are introduced. All this stuff about percent, part, and whole is on page 62 of the Algebra 1 textbook. And in the Algebra 1 textbook, we learned that the basic percentage equation is part is equal to percent times whole. And that another way of looking at that is the fact that we could just take the part divided by the whole, shift the decimal, and get the percent. This is the mechanical method of moving from a fraction to a percent. This is an algebraic way to represent that same process with an algebraic equation. Now, I'm going to stick with the algebraic equation process simply because as we look at tax testing or end of course testing, or we look at ACT testing, a lot of those are moving towards equation writing because we're in an age to where calculators do most of our fraction decimal work for us. What we need is people who are able to write an equation, okay? And so we're going to present it like this. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of board cleaning up here. I've done a whole lot of clicking and moving around and highlighting. So let's get rid of this and some of this percentage 360-degree stuff. And let's just really focus here on our part equal percent times whole equation that came from the Algebra 1 textbook on page 62. It gives us the percentage of gas expense as being 12. It wants the monthly gas expense. So we're looking for the part. It gives us the percent. We know the whole budget, so we should be able to find the part. We call this part equal percent times whole on page 62 of the algebra book the generic brand. And so I said, well, let's go by the name brand. The name brand is gas. So gas would be percent gas times the whole budget. So the amount of gas, which is what we don't know, is equal to the percentage of gas as a decimal. You would move that decimal 12% 2 places and get 0.12 times the whole income of $2,700. We're going to do that multiplication, 0.12 times 2,700. We'll use the calculator here, 0.12 times 2,700 is $324. So the gas expenses, $324. So to find the monthly utility expense, we would take our utility percentage, 19, as a decimal times the whole budget of 2,700, and you can just show your work right there beside it, or show your work that way. Instead of writing it this whole big process that we did in the Algebra 1 text, if you just want to show your work from here and then put your answer, that's fine. Percent times whole equal part, and you would do it for each one of those categories to get your percentage. Okay, I'm going to put this pointer back. It jumped in there on me or something. Oh well, doesn't want to go back, does it? I guess I need to right click it. There it went. Okay, let's look at this little bar graph. It says how much did Bob earn in January? We're just reading the bar graph. In January, there's not even a bar. He earned $0. Number 7 says how much more did Bob earn in May than in February? How much more means subtract. So we want May minus February. In May, it was between 5 and 600. $550. In February, between 0 and $150, $500 minus $550 minus $50. I'm having trouble here, aren't I? $550 minus $50 would be $500 that he earned more in May than in February. Okay? Average, there's three measures of central tendency. We discussed those on page 66 of the algebra text. And we know that mean means average. And to get the average, you take the sum of the items divided by the number of items. Any questions there? Okay? Now, number 9 through 13, we're looking at a Venn diagram, and I'm going to adjust this just a little bit. Let me pause and get this adjusted. This circle right here, it's too dark. Let me start over. This circle right here represents dog owners. Everything in that circle, or everyone in that circle, is a dog owner. If you wanted total dog owners, you would have to add the 78 to the 21, and you would have 99 total dog owners. And then we'll take a look at cat owners, and we'll pause again. The other circle represents cat owners. So everything in the pink circle is cat owners. And so if you want the total cat owners, you have to add the 86 plus the 21, which is 107 total cat owners. And so obviously in the middle, we have those people who own both dogs and cats. And so there's 21 who own both. So the 78 is dog only, 86 cat only, 21 both dog and cat, 99 total dog, 107 total cat. Okay? So you can answer most of the questions from that. Let's look at this percent dog. Now, that's going to take us back to page 62 of the algebra text with the basic percentage equation. Part is equal to percent times whole. When I taught in the Algebra 1 text, we called that the generic equation. And then we would say we want the name brand. It says percent dogs, so the part would be dogs. And so we would say dogs is equal to percent dogs times total people. We're talking about owners. I'm going to say owners, so it doesn't make it sound like a person's a dog. And so we would put the dog only is equal to percent dog only. This was dog only. I should have put, see, percent dogs only, more specific, percent dogs only. And the total owners would be the dog only plus the both plus the cat only. So here would be your total owners, right? 78 plus 21 plus 86. And once you put that in there, then you would have an equation that you could use to solve for x, the percentage of dog-only people. Now, when you get X, it's going to be the percentage as a decimal, and you would then have to move your decimal 2 places to the right to get a percentage. So there's an introduction to some Venn diagram things.